Next, let's explore the gauge widget. So the widget is available on the left-hand side here, as usual. Just drag it in. Gauges, typically, you'll see a lot of blank space either side. What people typically do is they have multiple gauges next to one another, so you can kind of, if we just use the clone functionality to show this off, it looks a bit more like this. This is more of a normal use case for your gauges. So you'll have like multiple of them on a single row, and they just give you like a really nice at-a-glance view. If you see anything that's red, you should be concerned, and so on. So it's really powerful for visualizing the state of a specific metric. This is usually things like CPU, memory, network latency, things that have like really defined concerning values. So if CPU gets to like 99%, you know something is wrong. So while the gauge visualization doesn't change much across the different data types, the configuration does. So for logs, you can select different aggregations like count, sum, min, max, average, and so on. And you can also add a filter, so you can filter by specific logs if you want. And then you can set a min. So for example, we have a count of all logs going on right now, and it's 4.32 million. So if I select the max to be 5 million, we can see now that that's gone back a little bit because 4.32 million is less than 5 million. So we can see the space here. We can also see this outer arc here, green, yellow, and red. These represent the points at which the thresholds change. So you can see it's red right now because it's inside the red zone. So the way to set those thresholds is really simple. So green to yellow is 33%, so that's the green part. Yellow to red is 33 to 66, that's the yellow part, and 66 and onwards is the red part. I think 66 is a bit unfair, so I'm going to set that to 90. When I do that, you see that the inner graph changes. And this is because we're now in the yellow zone. The actual metric is now in the yellow zone, and the red zone only takes up a small space here. So that's how that works. Now, if you're not really bothered about these sort of graphs above the top to show the percentage or anything like that, you can just change this. And what will happen is as the value changes, the color of the text will actually change. So if we check this back to 66, it goes red. And stays yellow if we set to 90%. So if you just don't really want to see those full things, you can do that. Alternatively, you can just delete all the thresholds entirely and it will just stay green the whole time as well. That's kind of up to you. But the magic of this is that you're able to really very, very flexible and very configurable widget. So that's the functionality for logs. Of course, it supports metrics and spans as well. So for metrics, it's slightly different. You have different fields available here. So what we're going to do is we'll just select a different metric. So for example, if I take the average DB statement latency, for example, and pull that in, we now have 4.38k. And I can set the inner arc and the outer arc, and I can add some more thresholds back in again. I'll set that to yellow and that one to red, and I'll make this actually a little bit harder. So the max is set to 5 million from before. Let's say that's a 5,000, for example. So we can see once again that 5,000 milliseconds is very, very slow, and so that's actually a bit of a concern. So a 5-second response time is really not acceptable. Really quite nice, and we can actually do this, and we can see now we can actually set the units, and that will visualize that as seconds. Again, the thing to highlight here, really powerful at a glance. Okay, you can just look at this and understand it really cleanly. The last thing to discuss here is the calculation field. The calculation field has a number of different options. So you can select the minimum value, the maximum value. You'll notice you don't have to select any fields like the logs, because metrics are automatically numerical. These calculations can be done straight away. So you can see the sum and the instant value and so on and so forth. So this is just a really nice way of calculating what's going on. Finally, the instant value, this will give you like the most up-to-date reading of your metric, if you like. And if you want to understand more about this calculation field, there's this really nice tooltip, as well as a breakdown and documentation right here. So there's lots of different ways to like slice and visualize your data. This is essentially deciding how you're going to sample your metric for a particular reason. So we've looked at logs and metrics. We should look at spans finally. Now, spans has basically very, very similar to logs, but with one extra detail. This is all based on latency here, but we can see here we may only want to visualize just errors. So if we do that, we can see that the actual value changes quite substantially. Essentially, that will filter out any span without an error. And so if you just want to view the impact of errors, that's one really nice way of doing it. Thresholds work the same, units work the same, mins and maxes work the same, aggregations and things like that work the same as well. So if you select a different minimum, for example, you can actually select just the duration field and so on. So that's just a breakdown of the gauge widget and the different fields that are available within it. The gauge widget is really nice, actually. It's really very powerful. for visualizing specific metrics. Once again, if you're not interested in this whole gauge visualization at the top, you can turn it into a single metric widget as well. So just want to highlight that one more time. So it's essentially two widgets baked into one here. So this is really, really nice and really important for those high level but super, super important key metrics that have to be healthy at all times, and you want to see a big red line if they aren't.